Hello, welcome to Investor Talk. I'm Neil Peterson, founder and content-in-chief of Real Estate Investor. Today we're diving into the incredible global rise of eXp Realty, a company that's not only navigating disruption but driving it. And with a presence in over 27 countries and a goal of reaching 50 by 2030, eXp Realty is one of the most innovative and fast-scaling brokerages in the world. So I'm really thrilled to have two key leaders, the two key leaders behind this, and let's call it a movement, because I think that's what it is. And first of all, we've got Glenn Sanford. He's the founder and he's the CEO of eXp World Holdings. Glenn, wonderful chatting to you. Can you maybe just give a full introduction of yourself to the audience out there?
Hey, well, thank you. Thanks, Neil. And yeah, thanks for introducing me to your audience. I'm the founder of eXp Realty. I was as you would refer to it, as an estate agent back in 2002. So I started as a real estate agent, actually on a real estate team. Came in with a technology background. Prior, I worked for companies like America Online, built some online services. I was a consummate entrepreneur, starting a lot of different businesses over the years. And 2002, rookie of the year at the firm I was at. By 2004, I was in the top, well, actually by 2006, I was in the top 50 in the world with Keller Williams. And in 2007, I went independent with my own boutique real estate brokerage firm. And in 2008, when the housing market turned, I had to close down a bunch of the offices that I had at the time. And in 2009, we said, well, if we can't afford offices, what's the future of real estate look like? And we felt like the virtual cloud-based, we didn't refer to it as cloud-based, but virtual model was the future of real estate brokerage at some point in the future. So we said, why don't we start building that today and see what happens? So that was 2009 when we started eXp, and now we're 84-ish thousand agents in 27 countries. I think we've got 3 more before the end of the year that we're opening up, and it's been an incredible rocket ride. International is the fastest growing segment by a significant margin in terms of just percentage growth. I think internationally, from outside the U.S. and Canada, we grew by 103% Q1 over Q1, just from a sizing perspective. So we've got a fast-growing business. We've got a lot of estate agents around the world that really love the model, because it sort of gives them more autonomy in an industry that historically has been controlled by the brands. And so that continues to resonate well, which is, I think, why you keep on writing about us in your magazine.
Absolutely. Well, what an introduction. Great. Just to hear about the fast growth of eXp, it's amazing, absolutely amazing, and so quickly. And then secondly, we've got Andrew Thompson, and he heads up eXp in South Africa. So Andrew, you also want to give yourself a bit of background and full introduction?
Yeah, Neil, my resume won't be as good as Glenn's, but I'm part of this most exciting company that I've ever worked for, and what a journey it's been. So, from my sort of humble beginnings, small town boy, getting into hotels, in actual fact, where I cooked eggs and bacon and made beds as a trainee, and I worked my way through the industry and ended up managing some 31 hotels between Zimbabwe, Botswana, and South Africa. And I did that for around about 20 years. And the reason why I do mention that is I just feel that I've got a flair for adding value to people's experiences. And it's really shown from a real estate point of view. And I think you and I first met when I was in the development game.
Absolutely.
And large-scale developments for around about 16 years. And through that experience, I was on helicopters and on boats and in boardrooms and doing various really impressive activities, attracting funders, developers, other co-developers, investors, etc., into our precinct and into our gated communities. And through that experience, I initiated a small Keller Williams franchise here in Umhlanga Rocks, where I now live. and got that up and running, got that going, 15 months into profit. And then all of a sudden, I heard about this gentleman by the name of Glenn Sanford. I heard a lot about eXp Realty, and I thought I'd just put up my hand to become a country leader for eXp Realty South Africa. And I've really appreciated the embracing of my experience. I've joined the company, and now I'm very proud to say we're the fastest growing real estate company in Africa. And, we've come down from the 6,000th largest real estate company in South Africa 4.5 years ago to number 3 in South Africa, where we stand at the present moment. And, to be over 1,350 plus agents at the present moment, that's been an incredible feat, backed by the support of Glenn, backed by an incredible leadership team, but most importantly, attracting really good and successful agents into our organization. And I've absolutely loved the experience. It's been phenomenal.
Wonderful. Thanks very much for that intro there, Andrew. And I think we're going to unpack the global strategy. We're going to talk about the role of technology, AI, and also why South Africa in particular is becoming a model market in this borderless expansion. I mean, you mentioned right at the outset, you've already grown from 26 to 27 after being in Barcelona. So be interested to hear that about you. But Glenn, let's start off with you. You've described eXp as an agent-centric from day one. So what does that look like in a global context, and how has this philosophy helped you scale across 27 countries? And you mentioned 30 by the end of the year.
Yeah, so no, it's fundamental to how we think about the business. One, I've never thought about myself in any other context than an agent. Obviously, I'm in a number of different roles, but I think about the journey that we've built eXp on was to basically create leverage for individual agents in a business where typically the brokerage had the leverage. And I really was somewhat of a jaded agent, meaning that I didn't believe in the structures that were being put on me as an agent when I was growing my career. One, I went in, I remember I went into the Prudential office. So I started at Prudential, which is now Berkshire Hathaway here in the States. But I went to the local franchisee after being the rookie of the year and being the top buyer's agent my first full year, number 3 in the office. And I went and said, hey, I'd love to be able to maybe buy some equity or become an equity shareholder. And they said no. And for me, that was kind of a little bit of a slap in the face because, I was the one going out and generating the leads. I was going out and working with the buyers and the sellers, but primarily I was buyer oriented. And I wanted to have something to show for it because real estate agents fundamentally are, if they're not working, they're out of business. If something physically happens to them, they get sick, they get hit by a car, they're out of business. And a lot of times they're the primary breadwinners in their home and there's no safety net. And so equity was like the first stage of me trying to build a safety net. I went on to Keller Williams, which, in theory had a little bit better of a safety net. I was really attracted to the concept of profit share. And but at least in the US, the way it was done, because of the physical bricks and mortar costs and the way the profits was shared, there actually wasn't that much profit to share with the agents. So I grew a fairly large organization for me personally in the 3 years I was there, and about 184 people in my profit share group, and I earned about $6,000 while jumping on planes and trying to help grow this safety net for myself. And I said, this doesn't work. And so I remember walking out of the office and going down and talking to a couple of my team members. I said, if we ever build a company, we're going to do a revenue share model versus a profit share model. And because I wanted the numbers to be predictable. If somebody put the effort in, they needed to know at some level of certainty that they would get money for that effort. And so that was kind of the first stage. And in 2009, a number of things took place, obviously, in the housing market in 2008. But in 2009, when we went and said, hey, if we build a virtual model, we don't have the overhead expense of a brokerage, a typical physical office. So we should be able to share the revenue. And then the other piece that we were trying to solve for was how do we actually help our agents become equity shareholders? I always think of myself as a focus group of one. So with that agent hat on, I said, okay, profit share was interesting, didn't work. Revenue share would be more interesting. I went and asked for equity at my office. I wasn't offered it. I actually asked for equity at Keller as well. Wasn't really offered equity there either. And I said, well, we need to do equity because those two pillars were things that would have brought me closer and more in line with the ownership of the office. And then I would have been able to build that retirement strategy. The other piece is thinking about branding and marketing. For a lot of years, the brokerage controlled so much of the inventory that they also a lot of times controlled how agents could even brand themselves because they didn't really want the agents really competing with them because they knew that if they could be the brand, then agents would have to work for them in order to stay relevant. But as soon as they gave agents the ability to brand and build their own personal brands, then eventually they lose control of that relationship because they're no longer really needed. And so for us, I thought about how do we empower agents to have a brand. So you'll see, many of our agents in South Africa, but all around the world, they have big social media presences. And in fact, we've agents that have larger followings than eXp does as a company, and they're generating hundreds. We have one team that's doing, I think, well over 1,000 transactions a year as a real estate team. So they could be brokerages in their own right, but because we give them so much freedom and we treat them so well, they're like, why would I leave? And so when we think about agent-centric, it's really how do you build the largest business you can possibly imagine on a platform that takes away a lot of the stuff that you don't like to do. I don't know a lot of agents that actually like to do paperwork. I don't know a lot of agents that like to do the accounting side of the business and deal with the taxes and deal with the insurance and deal with the real estate commissions and all that stuff. Real estate agents like to sell, but they like the idea of ownership. They like the idea of residual income, but they don't want to go through the brain damage of building out that infrastructure. And so we went through the brain damage and basically said, here it is. Build whatever business you want to build on top of it, and we'll continue to iterate in the background to build all those systems so you can do what you do, but also have the safety net. So that's kind of what we think about from a agent centricity perspective.
Well, amazing. I think it's a brainwave, if I can call it that. But I mean, interesting. Both of you, Andrew and yourself, come from a Keller Williams background, and you've now designed this new model coming from the opposition at the time. Interesting. I was involved in South Africa in 2004 with the rollout of Remax, when Remax at that time was quite a big name. So over the years, which is very interesting. But it's amazing just to see how everything has evolved. And how you're trying to cover all the bases which the other agents could not offer. So, Andrew, South Africa has certainly become one of eXp's standout markets. And what do you think has driven the momentum here? And how are the local agents responding to this global first virtual model?
Neil, I don't think it's only applicable to South Africa, but what we find is eXp agents just absolutely love the model. So I often talk, and in actual fact, I'm meant to be talking now on a show I do on a Tuesday evening called The Best Model in the World. And I've got my colleague doing that this evening while I'm talking to you. And I just really do believe that agents just love eXp. That's number one. Number two, they love the model. And I think if you breed a model or you create success opportunities within your model where agents are happy and go out and tell other agents that they are happy, there's a natural sort of magnetation towards that individual. So you end up having happy and good agents attracting other good and great agents. And so the success story gains momentum. and it becomes a movement. And things start happening in your business where it goes from 100 agents to 1,000 agents rather rapidly. But I think the biggest attraction for us, Neil, is one of this, probably the values of our structure, where family and community take big priority within our organization. There's a very caring component within the establishment, if you can put it that way. And the really nice thing is there's an incredible feeling of collaboration. So it's an agent to agent experience. You got really your best agents in the world training other agents. And it's an education, it's a school, it's a university of coaching, success planning, and planning for the future of really great agents and good producing agents to join the movement. So I certainly have loved the experience. I feel very much part of the community and part of the family after 4.5 years. And certainly South Africa has been a standout success in that we are probably the biggest family and community of real estate professionals after America and Canada, which is quite an amazing story.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. And Glenn, your first quarter earnings, on one call you mentioned eXp's interconnected platform. Can you explain how eXp structure in North America as the engine and international, and I know you've just come back from Barcelona, and I know you're going to share that with us a little bit later, as the frontier, and how it creates a competitive advantage globally?
Yeah, so the reality is that and Andrew can attest to this. Even though we're probably as far away physically as we can possibly be in terms of just being able to operate a business, we're actually very connected through technology. And this, one of the things we're the largest user. In fact, we now own the platform, but we're the largest user of a virtual world for work platform. So basically, it's a metaverse that is our office. So if we were having this conversation in our eXp international offices, you would have walked in as an avatar. You would have run into people from all over the world. You would be having sort of water cooler conversations, just like you might do in your own physical office. And then you'd go and meet with whoever you wanted to meet with. And that's one of probably 3 or 4 technologies that we use throughout the day. Like we're very connected via Slack, so we've moved our enterprise over to Slack, and of course that's totally distributed. We do the occasional Google Meets and Zoom. We do get together at various physical events around the world, which again that's important because it solidifies those online relationships that are built digitally. And then we've got coaching and training and going on from agents and brokers all over the world, where other agents and brokers are jumping into those virtually and building those relationships. We're also building a lot of, we'll call it enhancements to our model that actually fosters more cross-border relationships. So we've created just recently a new platform called co-sponsorship, and what that basically means is that if I'm an agent in the U.S. and I'm maybe I know somebody in South Africa that's also an estate agent, I can partner with someone in South Africa that's already there as a successful eXp agent and support that person together, rather than just sending them to the broker and hoping they'll be successful, and the broker's trying to manage 40, 50, 100, whatever number of agents. Now you've got somebody who's got a vested interest in your success in country to support you. And so that continues to sort of build that cross-pollination. So we're always doing these things to kind of bring things together. And Andrew and I probably talk at least every couple weeks, and some weeks we're talking 2 and 3 times a week in various meetings, and we couldn't be further physically from each other, but it's literally walking across the office.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. Andrew, let's just look at
Neil, before you go on to your next question, I mean, you just think about all these terrible wars across the world, and if you want to win a war, take away the communication. And Glenn and the entire team give this incredible focus around good communication. So all the best platforms that are available to any particular agent, leadership, colleagues around the world, all you want to foster is a bigger family and a bigger community, and give people the ability and access to really great communication tools. So when we thought WhatsApp was good, picture how good Slack is, as an example. So I just find this absolutely incredible. And the second thing is take away the data and you can win the war. Okay, so those two things, I think eXp really gets it right in terms of having the competitive edge over other companies, in having the ability to interact with other agents across the globe in a very easy manner and in a very communicative manner, which is really key. Thank you.
Excellent. So Glenn, let's turn a little bit of AI. I mean, you spoke a little bit about the metaverse, and I'm actually quite familiar with your metaverse product. Very interesting, and how everybody connects and all that. So, what role is AI playing in eXp's global strategy? I mean, you've talked about a little bit about enabling agents to launch digital systems without needing coding. I mean, is this a game changer for global scale? I mean, and how are you using it?
Yeah, well, it'd probably be the shorter list would be where aren't we using AI in reality? Because we're using it for virtually everything. You're recording this conversation. I've got my AI recording this conversation.
Yeah.
I'll be able to grab this and take a transcript of it, and I can quickly create a blog post out of it, and I can then share that out in some capacity. So the ability to use all this content and all this rich content that we have around us, more recently we started doing using some no code platforms where they're AI coding platforms. And since then, we've been rolling out, actually in South Africa, a lot of our new platforms that we're rolling out are actually being built. Um, I would say not assisted by AI, really assisted by humans, because we're kind of giving it sort of prompting directions, and then it's going and building this whole like large repository of code to actually deliver things like real estate search and real estate marketing, and then collaboration tools with consumers, and just there's just a lot of things that we're building in real time. I think the reality is that it's like I can point at a few things that are edge cases, but there's all these things that we're all using every day, and we didn't even think about it as AI, but it's fully AI enabled. So how we're using social media, how do the algorithms work? We don't know how they work. This is all all doing, but we've got I've got my Claude subscription, my OpenAI subscription, I've got my Grok, I've got my Perplexity, I've got another platform doing stuff over here. And so the reality is that we want to coach agents to do this stuff. So last week in Barcelona, we sat with a number of top agents. We actually, the mastermind was where they actually built fully developed software in 20 minutes that they could put to use in their business. And these are real estate agents. These are not coding professionals. And their minds were literally blown. So these are community-based websites. These are calculators for homeowners to calculate the value of their home. There were all kinds of different tools that agents can use, and so part of it is us using it internally, but the other part is teaching agents what tools they have available that with $5 worth of prompts or 100 rands worth of prompts, you can build something that would have cost you 100,000 or 500,000 rand to build with that developers, and you've done it for like whatever $5-10 US in prompts.
It's amazing, all this new technology coming out. It's so important to embrace it. And I think that's exactly what you're doing with your agents at eXp, getting them to embrace the technology and let it be an add-on to their team members. So Andrew, let's look a little bit at the local market. What's been the biggest challenge and the biggest win since leading eXp's rollout in South Africa?
Neil, I think the biggest challenge was in the early part, starting this business, getting it up and running, and not knowing what systems we really did have in place. So, in the early part, there was the having the ability to go out there to learn the systems, to understand the tools that were available to you, start building it, getting that in place, and then really convincing agents that are out there that we've got the best available platforms in terms of lead generation, agent attraction, all of these different things. But in the early part, it was a challenge. I think we're the first country to roll out of 24 new countries across the globe. And I think it's been very rewarding from a point of view was that our early learnings, we've been able to adapt and enable other countries to get going a whole lot quicker than we did right in the beginning. So as you know, I had a full mop of hair when I started with eXp right in the beginning, and that was a bit of a challenge. No, I'm joking. It was a good challenge to have because we learnt our technology. We actually got to understand the tools. We got to understand the systems. And with the implementation from a project management point of view, probably the most or the biggest successes is to move the dial from 0 agents 4.5 years ago. You got to picture it, Neil. And all of a sudden, we're at 1,350 agents, and we're taking on 5 new agents a day from some of the top agencies in South Africa and really making a big impact. So you picture 5 agents a day coming into our organization at the present moment. In some small teams, they can never achieve that in a lifetime. And for me, it has been hugely pleasurable to really get to know our international colleagues, number one. Number two, to really handpick individuals into our leadership team, know that they're going to be there to support our very own agent team. And then the incredible relationships that we've created with our very own agents and across the country, people like James Cornelius, Tiago Nsiari, Stephen Johnston, all of these top agents of ours across the country, now attracting really other top people into our organization. It's really heartwarming. It's been an amazing experience.
Wonderful. So Glenn, for you, I mean, what makes a market like South Africa so attractive to eXp? I mean, how do you assess potential for expansion? What's the long-term vision for Africa? I mean, also especially if you look across African markets and, we see real estate laws can be fragmented or still evolving. And you mentioned, obviously, 27 countries, you're looking at 30 by the end of the year. So I'd just like to understand, what does it mean for you to be in South Africa?
Yeah, so for us, it's about being a platform for agents wherever they operate from, but it does fundamentally flow from leadership in country. So we've had countries where the country was great, but the leader in country was not very great, and the market struggled. We've had other countries where the market wasn't great, but we had a great leader, and they've been some of the fastest growing countries that we've had. One case in point would be less than 6 weeks ago, maybe 5 weeks ago, we launched in Ecuador. Very small country, but we brought over the #1 Remax team in the country, and now we're over 120 agents in a very short period of time. So much so that the franchisor that the agent came from is sort of rethinking how they actually can operate in the country when the eXp value proposition is so significant, and yet we can operate in that market. So for us, it's more about leadership. We're in the process. We just announced we're going to be launching in Korea. Korea may sound like a really big market, but in comparison, the commissions in Korea top out at about 1%. That's the
Wow.
top end.
Wow.
So so the average commission is somewhere around $5,000, which was at 100,000 rand something like that. Like you and that's the average. So how do you build a business with that little bit of economics and still offer 75-25 to your agents and pay for them to be on the portals and do all those things? But we figure it out, and so every market's different. But we're excited about all the things that we're doing. So super stoked on all that.
Wonderful. So, Andrew, I mean, let's talk a little bit about agent development and retention. What specific strategies is eXp using to retain top talent globally? Because that's important. I mean, Glenn actually shared, we came for the top guys. And how are you investing in long-term career paths for agents in places like South Africa?
Yeah. Neil, I think if you think back to last year, and this was a tip I actually got from Glenn, because Glenn did 365 agent attractions in 365 days. Now you picture repeating the model over and over again over 365 days. That's quite a hard task. So I sat with my leadership team during last year and I said to them, what do you think we should do from a roadshow events, mega event point of view, etc. Anyway, we came up with the idea of following in Glenn's footsteps with 52 roadshows in 52 weeks. And we achieved that during last year. And what is quite amazing is, you might not have touched a person. And I think this is probably the most important part, is you want to touch the agent in terms of being present. And because we're a virtual company and we communicate well and we've got all those great platforms that we spoke about earlier, you've got to reach out and you've got to go out on road shows. You've got to be in the space of the agent. You've got to build that relationship, network, etc. And it's not always about agent attraction. It's even more so around agent retention, because they want to meet with the leadership. They want to meet with other agents in the organization, and they want to tell their own success stories. And what we do on our road shows and events is obviously we showcase our top agents in the form of cap agents, our icon agents, and then obviously lead in with leadership, presenting what we normally do from a leadership perspective. So for me, it's been really good in terms of being out there amongst the agent team, amongst the leadership team. But it does go back to a few things. Obviously, family and community is vitally important. Great communication. I think we've got a policies and procedures manual, which really shows the values of the organization, the trust, the integrity, why you want to be a part of this organization. And there's a story in the independent contract agreement, which really lays out exactly what our promise is to you and our deliverables are to you. And if we can exceed agent expectations in terms of those deliverables with a really good quality marketing deck, etc., and really over deliver, then I think we're always in a good space in terms of retention. And what you do want to do in terms of retention is you want those agents going out and telling their story. So we do market to our very own agent team in a very strong way. We've got sort of family and community groups that we go out to. We celebrate success in a really good way, broadcasting on social media, personal handshakes, personal phone calls from myself. I try to call every single agent within our organization on their birthday. We celebrate anniversaries, we mourn deaths, whatever the case might be, but we really care for our people, and that's what retains people. I think that's very important.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that, Andrew. So Glenn, let's talk a bit about lessons learned. I mean, what's one surprising lesson or unexpected challenge you've encountered in eXp's global rollout, and how's it shaped maybe your expansion strategy moving forward?
The one thing that I do reflect on is that, there's definitely differences between countries and continents in terms of how real estate agency or real estate brokerages practice. And coming from North America, we've had a totally different market in that we have a robust multiple listing service. We can see basically all the listings that are available. Any buyer's agent can represent any buyer on any listing, regardless of brokerage. And the cost of marketing is relatively low because of the syndication effect that the MLS provides. The one thing that I didn't understand was the the significant cost burden that both agencies and agents have to bear up front in order to even create the exposure for the listings that they have. And that does become quite a barrier to entry for agents internationally when there's this fairly large cost that needs to be assumed, which I think is one of the appeals for agencies. But it also plays against them because once they get locked in that ecosystem, they get stuck with traditionally 50-50 splits that is pretty typical in international markets. So for me, is just recognizing that, and for us, we're spending a lot of time trying to figure out how do we break the stranglehold that the portals have on agents, and what are the tools and technologies we can put in their hands, in consumers' hands, and then also to try to predict and shape the future of how is like AI going to play in this whole mix. Because I think that one of the things that we haven't really figured out or factored in is that now instead of going to Google, consumers are now going to ChatGPT and asking the same questions. And how's that going to shape how real estate is done in the future when you're no longer going to a search engine, which then features Property 24 or whatever as the sort of primary place to go, but you're now getting results from every website inside of one common interface. And so I think there's going to be some big changes that are going to happen, regardless of what eXp does, but because of the multi-billions, really trillions of dollars being put into the AIing of everything, and how's that going to reshape every business, including consumer behavior, which ultimately results in the stuff that we're talking about here, which is organized real estate.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that, Glenn. And I know we're coming up to sort of the wrap up, and I know you want to share some of your experiences also from overseas, particularly in Barcelona, in Spain, and also around the country. But, for both of you, maybe just in closing, maybe you can share. I mean, we're now sitting in mid 2025, and already you're on 27 countries. You mentioned you want to be by 30 by the end of this year. But let's have a look. What does it look like around about 2030? If we look at eXp Realty, how would you like it to be? And then I think for you, Andrew, maybe we'll start off with you. What role do you see South Africa playing in that future?
Neil, you're putting me a bit on the spot, but I'm going to say what I think, Glenn. I do apologize if I'm saying the wrong things, but we've got such an incredible base in South Africa in terms of infrastructure and people. And I think what's important to know, I love those calls. Glenn, I think you'd appreciate this to say, Andrew, where are your offices? We say, we got no offices. Okay, we operate with zero infrastructure in South Africa. We do not own a building. And I always love those calls. So being able to operate in a virtual environment, massive advantage, and just love the experience. Safest environment I've ever worked in, healthiest environment I've ever worked in, and the first time I've ever worked from home. So if you really think about it, if we are going to venture up into Africa, I always feel that a springboard is via Mauritius into Africa. I love the way that they do business there, small island. And I just feel at the same time that with the infrastructure of people that we've got in South Africa, and maybe with a combination of France, because there are a lot of French-speaking countries in Africa and islands that adopt the French legalities, that there could be a blend between South Africa and France, offering the people infrastructure to support other countries across Africa. And I mean, I can roll those countries off the top of my head. It doesn't mean that we're going to open there, but I would certainly hope that a number of these delegations would come down from Africa and attend eXpCon Cape Town, February 2026, and just look into eXp as to whether this is a product they would absolutely love having in their country. And I mean, you could be from Namibia, Botswana, Zambia, Kenya, Nigeria, Morocco, Ghana, Mauritius, Egypt, etc. Those are the countries that I would imagine Glenn and the team might look at in the future and hopefully utilize the expertise that we've created in South Africa from an infrastructure point of view, and really tap into the onboarding process, the transactional process, because we've got the manning and the people available here and potentially through in France, as an example. So I think the outlook for Africa 2030 is a good outlook. I think it's a growth outlook. And I certainly believe that between South Africa, the future of Egypt, that we're going to certainly put Africa on the map from an eXp point of view.
Excellent. And Glenn, from eXp Global perspective, 2030, how's it looking like?
Yeah, there's a couple ways to look at it. One, a lot of people like to hear the predictions, like 50 countries, 50,000 agents, and that type of thing. And Andrew hears me talk about this all the time. Our big thing is, how do we continue to be the most agent-centric real estate brokerage on the planet? And I think if we do that, we'll get there by default. Meaning that, the reason why we're growing isn't because we're going into each of these countries and saying, hey, we need to put a flag here and grow. It's because somebody in that country recognized what we're doing and want to be part of it. And so for us, we want to just continue to be the brokerage that agents want to hang their hat at, regardless of all this crazy stuff going on in the world. We want to be a safe haven for agents, regardless of what's happening around them, whatever the political climate, whatever happens going on. They're still helping people get into homes. One of the basic human rights in some respects, or human needs, is a place to live, and so we provide a really fundamental function in helping people, with housing, some of it obviously higher end than others. But the idea is that we want to be able to build an infrastructure where agents around the world want to be part of it. And if we do that, then our numbers might actually be low, because we're really focused on that agent overall experience, and do they actually have a place that they can build the business that they want to build. And one of the cool things that has also come out of this is that models are changing. I don't know what's going on with regard to models specifically in South Africa. You could sort of look at Keller Williams as a version of a model that we took some elements of, but I think over the next 5 years, you're going to see the real estate brokerages around the world looking a lot more like eXp and empowering their agents, and a lot less about the sort of the legacy. We're the brand, and you need to work for us because we control everything. So I think we're going to see the industry shift at the same time that eXp continues to expand, which again is really helps. Our mission is to help agents fundamentally around the world, and we also know that no one brokerage is going to house everybody. So it's pretty cool to see that the industry is shifting as well.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Andrew, your final thoughts. Do you want to give your parting shots there to the audience? And I'll give you also a final opportunity there to Glenn as well.
Neil, I just loved what Glenn just said. I certainly learned from him. He attended a conference with us called Build Africa, an agent-led event around about 18 months ago down in Cape Town. And I said to him, we want to be the biggest real estate company in Africa. And he said to me at that particular time, he said, just remain being the best, agent-centric, agent-focused. And I learned so much from that conversation, because one is, if you can keep your agents happy, they're the people that go out there and do the business and change people's lives in a game-changing environment. And, I think that the sort of culture has been created from a South African point of view. And it's really now our agent team going out there telling an incredible story. And just talking about incredible stories, I mean, I had the pleasure now this last week of attending eXpCon Barcelona in Spain, my first time to Spain, a superb experience. And every time you go to these kind of events, you network, you meet, you interact, you make more friends, you build relationships, and an incredible story goes around the world. The next step is to eXpCon Miami Beach, and I'm sure Glenn can touch on that a little bit later. But the big one for me is eXpCon Cape Town International Convention Center, February 2026, between the 17th and the 20th of February. And we just launched it this last week at eXpCon Barcelona. And it's all about the beat of Africa. Pre and post tours. We want people to book holidays, come out on safari, come witness what South Africa, the hospitality is all about, the culture of the 64 million people across our country, but also for those explorers that want to come in and witness what eXp is all about. We're also going to be doing our annual awards. We're going to be doing some day excursions and things like shark cage diving, parasailing, wine routes, trams, all those kind of things. And I just think it's a holiday of choice to come to a destination where there's going to be superb hospitality and then just come interact with our family, our community, and our real estate professionals here locally in South Africa. And Neil, we'll see you there as well, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
And, we're looking forward to interacting with you as well.
Absolutely. That's Andrew Thompson. He's head of eXp Realty South Africa. And then, of course, Glenn, I'm going to give you the opportunity, your final parting shots.
Yeah. So, well, if it's a parting shot, then wherever you're at, you should just come to eXp. That's my parting shot. But seriously, obviously check out eXp. But we do have, eXpCon Miami coming up in October. Hoping for as many people from around the world that will be coming out to that. We'll have 3,000-4,000 people there at the Miami Convention Center, so it'll be a great week there. But at the end of the day, think about what are you building if you're a real estate agent watching this? What are you building, and what safety nets are you building into your business? And if you don't have one, then certainly check out eXp.
Wonderful. And that is, of course, Glenn Sanford. He is the CEO and founder of eXp Realty based in the US. And I forgot to ask, whereabouts in the US you're based right now? Where are you right now?
I am in Washington State, north of Seattle, up in a town called Bellingham, Washington.
Okay. All right. So as you said, in the north. I know a little bit about the states. I've been to about 16 states in the US. I'm quite well traveled in that country. So yeah, you're in a little bit more of the colder area up north, aren't you?
Yeah, but it's a quite nice day today, so probably
summer.
Similar weather.
But wonderful chatting to you. Thank you, Glenn and Andrew. It was such an inspiring and insightful conversation. It's clear that eXp Realty is more than just a real estate brand. It's now operating system for the real estate industry in the world and in South Africa. And to our viewers, thank you for joining us. And until next time, I'm Neil Peterson. Thanks for watching. See you next time.